All right, thank you, everyone. So my name is Deborah Levin-Trosser, and I'm trying to, how can I see Zoom? I can't see that far away. Can I pull up Zoom here? I can't. Okay, that's fine. Sure. Okay, so we are here to talk about how to negotiate with confidence. So that's really the number one thing that you need when you are negotiating is confidence. You also need to understand how people think. So there's a lot of psychology in negotiating. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I am running a workshop in October. So this is a little bit of a sneak peek. Feel free to put your videos on. I'd love to see your beautiful faces as we go through just a couple of slides here. So let's do a chatterfall. So a chatterfall is, I want you to type in the chat box, but don't push the send button or push enter. So go into the chat box, into your chat box, and like 2 or 3 words. In what situations do you negotiate? Don't push send yet, though, because a chatterfall is we're going to push send all at the same time when I say go, and then we're going to read all the fun answers at the same time. Okay, so let's see. Okay, on the count of 3, I want you to push your send or push the little arrow. The question is, in what situations do you negotiate? 1, 2, 3, push send. Ooh, good. Lots of good answers. Oh, interesting. You negotiate with friends. I would love to know what you negotiate with friends about. It definitely raises in promotion. Good job, Kara. Hayden, compensation and the sale of a product. Interesting. So sale of a product, I'm guessing you mean the price of it. Buying a used car or a new car, any kind of car. Even a lease, you can negotiate a lease. Okay. Federico, salary, good. Diego, work, home purchase, timing. Yes, you can absolutely negotiate on time. Sydney, a job, a house. Yes, yes, yes. Christian, new product development project, scoping. Absolutely. Scoping is a great answer about where you can negotiate. Most people don't think about the scope of a project as being negotiable. So great answers. The answer is everywhere and anywhere. Every situation is negotiable. And most importantly is it starts with dun da da da. Okay, the down arrow is not working.
You have to click on it first.
Okay. Starts with your attitude. Attitude is everything in negotiations. Look at these 2 sentences here. One is a declarative sentence and one is a question. Do you believe the first or do you believe the second? Right, so just think about that. Do you believe everything is negotiable or are you not sure? Everything is negotiable? Question mark. Right? That's where your confidence comes in, right there. So in October, when you come to my session, if you are the second and you're not sure, you have a question mark at the end of your sentence. By the end of the day, I'd like you to have a period at the end of your sentence. That's the goal. If you come into my session with a period at the end of your sentence, I'm going to give you lots of new tips and tricks on how to negotiate for success and with confidence. So in the chat room, could you please answer this question? You don't have to do a chatterfall. You can go ahead and just push send whenever you are ready. So what's that synonym? What would be a synonym for negotiator? Go ahead and just type something in. Whatever you think would be a synonym for negotiator. In the chat room, please. Oh, good one, Sydney. And Hayden, same word. That's awesome. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure if it's Hayden or Jean. So I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to read that, but great answer. Compromiser. All right. That's an interesting one, Christian. So we're going to use a book called Never Split the Difference. It's a recommended pre-read to this session that I'm doing in October. And his argument in there is never compromise. But that's just not real life, in my opinion. So I think that's a great answer. Diego, a strategist. Yes. And I'm glad nobody put manipulator, because negotiations can get a negative spin on them if you try to manipulate people. What I mean by that is negotiation is by definition psychological. You have to understand the other side in order to effectively negotiate. And then you have to utilize what you know about the other side in order to get what you need and want, and also have them get what they need and want. So some people would call that manipulation. I think it's smart psychological gymnastics. But we can talk about that in October when you come to my session. So just some basics about negotiation. We're animalistic. We really are. We're irrational and we're also emotional. It's just the facts. That's just the way we are. And you have to go into a negotiation, even if it's at a garage sale. Love to negotiate at garage sales. Just you got to remember these things. I was just at a garage sale the other day and I didn't realize it, but it was a fundraiser for a certain disease that dogs get. And so I was negotiating with the lady on a piece of furniture. And then she said, you know, all the money goes to a fundraiser, you know, for this animal, this dog disease. And I just felt terrible, right? Very emotional. She was very emotionally attached to the purpose, to the activity, and to what was going on. And I didn't realize that. So just remember that we are animalistic, irrational, and emotional. Okay. You've got to have empathy for the other side. There's always another side, right? It's you and the other side. Usually you have different desires. You've got to be a good listener and use active listening. It's actually a stalling technique in negotiating, to repeat back what you've heard. And I think you all probably have seen that with politicians. And when they answer questions, they will repeat back what they heard in order to give themselves time. It's also a strategy in negotiating. It's also common to negotiate. A lot of people come to me and say, well, I didn't even realize I could negotiate my roles and responsibilities at work. I didn't even know I could negotiate my raise. I'm protected by the union. I have, you know, 3% raise every year. You're telling me I can try to go in and negotiate more? Absolutely. I mean, what are they going to say? No? It's all I can, I mean, it's the worst thing that's going to happen, is to say no. So it's very common to negotiate. A lot of people, when they get a job offer, they're afraid to negotiate because they really need the job. And so they don't want to negotiate because they're afraid that they're going to rescind the offer. They're not going to rescind the offer. In fact, they're probably going to respect you more for trying to negotiate more, because wouldn't you want a good negotiator on your team? I think it's a good thing. In negotiating, always expect surprises. There will be surprises. If you enter into a negotiation expecting surprises, you will not be surprised when they happen, and you will be prepared for them. So always, always, always expect surprises and be able to think quickly. And if you can't think quickly, there's several stalling techniques that we'll talk about in October. And it usually doesn't happen as quickly as you want, especially if it's a job offer, a house, a car. It's not like back and forth, and then you're done in 2 minutes. it can take weeks or months. I mean, look at some of the union negotiations that have happened with the automakers, right? Months and months can go by during negotiating. When you do enter into negotiations, make sure you do your research. Don't go in unprepared. That's just a no-brainer. Do have a contingency plan on what you're willing to accept and know what your bottom line is going to be. And then also, scarcity is usually a sign of weakness. So think about that. What does that mean in the chat room? What do you think that means? Scarcity is usually a sign of weakness. There's no wrong answer here. What do you think that means in the chat room? Scarcity is usually a sign of weakness. Diego, if you show you really need something, the other side will take advantage of it. Yeah, you got to remember there's two sides. That's an excellent answer. There's a big difference. Listen to this scenario. You go in, your car dies, and you really need a car. And you go into the car dealer and get a car. The other hand is your lease is up in 3 or 4 months. You don't need a car right now. You got 3 or 4 months to find one, test drive, negotiate. This first scenario, you're scarcity. You're in the scarcity bucket. Like you got to have something, right? That's a bad position to be in. Jean Hayden says scarcity of knowledge. Ooh, that's good. Could likely portray no or less confidence. That's why you got to go in prepared. Do your research. Whatever it is you're negotiating on, do your research. Here's a funny story. Who here has ever gotten a speeding ticket? That's okay. It's not like a bad thing. We've probably a lot of us have. Christian, okay. Who else wants to admit it? Okay. Dejanay, all right. Okay. Who else has gotten a speeding ticket? Can't be just 2 of us. That would be like 10% of us. And I believe it's higher. Ah, Carolina. Okay, or Carolina. And I've gotten several. Okay. I have a lead foot, not embarrassed to admit that. It's kind of the way I am. So I was in court. I decided to take it to court because I had a rash on my arm and it was like spreading. And I called my dermatologist and I said, I don't know what's going on, but like it's quickly spreading. And she said, come right in. So I was on 96. For those of you who are in Michigan or know Michigan, I was on 96 going west towards Lansing. This was last year and it was under construction. Isn't it always under construction? 96? I don't know. Anyway, I was on my way to the dermatologist and I was speeding through a construction zone. Bad and worse, right? Got this big speeding ticket. I was going 20 over. He gave me a ticket for 10 over in a construction zone. Bad news, right? Take it to court, told, my story. And the police officer showed up on Zoom on camera, right? And I was explaining my case. The officer was explaining, what he saw when he pulled me over. And I started to negotiate with the police officer. And the about my ticket, and we kept going back and forth. This happened in a matter of probably 4 minutes. And I said, oh, so you've never had a medical condition that you were in a hurry for to get to the doctor, or your wife or your kids have never had this before? And the judge, we got to the point where I had no points, no fee. And it was down to like whatever the least, not reckless driving, but whatever the least one is. I can't remember what it is. And the judge sat back in his chair and he did this. And he folded his arms and he said, never in my 28 years on the bench have I seen a member of the public negotiate with a police officer in my court? And he clapped his hands. He said, good job. And so when I say everything's negotiable, like people are just human. They're animalistic, irrational, and emotional. Keep those things in mind. Everything's negotiable. And I was confident. Got to have confidence to negotiate with the police officer, right? So before negotiating, you need to see things from both sides. Now, remember, I want you to remember when you come to my session in October, we're going to look at things from both sides because you may be the person who wants to negotiate, or you may be on the other side where the person is negotiating with you or wants to negotiate with you. So we're going to look at it from both sides because I'm sure you've sat on both sides. So my question for you is, before negotiating, you need to see things from both sides, and you have a great job offer, or I should say a good job offer, but it's not a great job offer. So in this situation, what is your goal? We're just going to fill this table in. What's your goal? You can either unmute yourself or type it in the chat room. Diego says more money. Sydney says promotion. So we're gonna just like kind of go at a very high level. It's a job offer because you don't have a job, you're out of a job, you have a job offer. It's a good offer, but not a great offer. So your goal is, you want a great offer, right? Now, Diego and Sydney. So if you want a great offer, what's important to you? Now, this is going to vary. So Diego wants money, Sydney wants responsibility. Those are two very different things. Hopefully they go together, but not necessarily. I've seen many a promotion that don't include more money, and I've seen people get more money and don't get a promotion, obviously, right? So this could be money. This could be responsibility. This could be title, because Sydney might mean title. So promotion could either be responsibility or title, or both. What else might be important to you? Good. Awesome. Benefits. What else? How about location? You want to live in California. You want to live on a beach. I don't know, whatever. Okay. Work-life balance. Lots of things, right? Is settling on the table for you? Are you willing to settle? These are the things. So let's just say title. If title's really important to you, if that was your answer, I guess I'm talking to Sydney, or if money for Diego is important, are you willing to settle? You have to know the answer to this before you negotiate. Diego and Sydney, are you willing to settle? Settle means take less. Okay. So Sydney says no. What about you, Diego? Are you willing to settle for less than, you said more money? I don't know if you have like a target in mind, and you said benefits, and I don't know if you have a target in mind. Hopefully you do. If you don't, then this is going to be easy. Then you're going to be willing to settle. But you're saying no, so that's your answer. So what are some resources that you would use before negotiating? If these are the things that are important, you're not willing to settle, your goal is to get a great offer, what resources might you consult with or use before entering negotiations? Okay, good. Good. What else? So yes, you would look at what the government says and what the media says about labor stats, or maybe some nonprofits. So do some research on labor stats. I'm assuming you mean like what are the ranges of salary, or what, whatever's important to you. What are some titles, right? So you're going to want to do research of whatever is important to you. In this column that says what's important, that's what you want to research, right? Friends and family, they may know. Colleagues, LinkedIn. There's some. Let's see. Understand your body of work. Yes, and correlate a personal value to it. So not only know your value, but be able to justify it and articulate it. Okay, good. Then you have to determine your strategy, and we'll get into the strategies on the next slide. So them is the other side, right? What's their goal in this situation? Yeah, right. Exactly, Diego. Keep your current. What's important to them? I mean, in general, what do we think is important to them? Okay. Good worker. That's that could mean a lot of different things. So, but I'll write that down because those were Sydney's words. Yeah, retaining talent, because it costs more to hire somebody new than it does to use an existing employee. Yeah, money, good. Okay. And obviously this is going to vary depending on who you're negotiating with and who this company is or organization is. Is settling on the table for them? You don't really know, right? I think most companies, in my experience, and I have over 30 years of experience of negotiating, I'm going to say yes. Most of them will settle. They will compromise. Other resources for them. What are they going to consult as they enter into this negotiation? They're probably going to look at their own budget. What are others making in the department? What else are they going to look at? Their company's job architecture. Good. Okay. And obviously this is going to vary. And then what's their strategy going to be? You don't know. You don't know what their strategy is going to be, but you need to be prepared for all of them. So what are some of those strategies? So here's some strategies. And I do have another slide on here, like you want to raise, and you could do the same thing on here, is fill this in for, this is the biggest one I get questioned about when I'm doing consulting, is how do I ask for a raise, right? And there's a whole process for doing that. But you would fill in this table. And this is going to help you determine that final column. Is this making sense? I'm not sure. I can't see people's faces, so I don't know. Hello. Making sense? Okay, there you go. Thank you. So here's some strategies. This is what we're going to do in October. If you come and spend 6 hours with me, this is what we're going to go over. These all have their place. These can all work. Use the sandwich technique. Negotiate with questions. Don't put your cards on the table or hold some things back to negotiate on. You start the negotiations. They start the negotiations, or you allow them to start the negotiations. Request clarity. Use active listening. Use kindness, politeness, and flattery. Disarm them. Use open-ended questions, use closed-ended questions, use texting, don't use texting, use email, don't use email, use the phone, don't use the phone. Walk away. That is a strategy for negotiating. I've done it several times and it's worked. You walk away, but you got to be willing to walk away. But a lot of times what happens is you walk away and they come back and get you. So it's an interesting psychological game, right? Start negotiating early. Start negotiating late. And I don't mean in the day, I mean like kind of in the process. It could be in the day too. Think long term, think short term. These all have their places, right? Pull their strings, push their buttons, use silence, plead ignorance. These are all negotiation strategies. Hostage negotiators use these. I've used them for raises. I've used them to buy houses. Anything that you negotiate, these are only a handful of strategies, but that's a lot of strategies, right? So come to my session in October, and if you go back up here, then you can pick which of those strategies, because I'll explain each one and I'll also explain when to use each one. Then you can fill in your table of what strategy you're going to use. And then what's your backup strategy, right? Because sometimes you got to change. Remember that I said, be prepared for the unexpected. So you got to be ready to change your tactic. However, sometimes a negotiation fails and you have to be ready for that. You got to be okay with that. You got to recognize that sometimes negotiations fail. And I would like to know from you, why do you think negotiations fail? Either unmute or type in the chat box. Why do negotiations fail? Well, I just gave you one example at the garage sale. Like she was not going to negotiate with me on that piece of furniture. Why? Because she was emotionally attached. Right? If you're emotionally attached, I've tried to buy a used car from somebody. It was their mother's. They were like, they were not willing to let it go for less than X, right? It was a failed negotiation. That's another good one. Tough competition. Next one, find the balance between being too soft and too tough. And you got to know your audience though, because what is too tough for Dejanay is not too tough for Christian. And what's too soft for Carolina might not be too soft for CJ. So part of negotiation is getting to know the other side. And that sometimes, will happen early. Sometimes it will happen late. Some people will have a poker face. You'll never really know. Negotiating is hard, but we're going to go through all of those strategies and more in October. Carolina, lack of good communication. Awesome. Yes. Misunderstandings. How often does that happen? Right? Especially on texting. Lack of information. Too much information can create confusion. These are all very valid reasons why negotiations fail. Keep a serious or poker face. Is it good or bad? Well, you got to know when to use it. It can be both. It can be good or it can be bad. Depends on what you're negotiating and who you're negotiating with. And I know that's a political answer, but it's the truth. There was a barricaded gunman, a couple days ago near me in Livonia, Michigan. And, it ended up with somebody getting shot. So that was a failed negotiation. Okay. Obviously I don't have the inside scoop as to why it failed, but I can tell you that feelings are usually the reason for failed negotiation. And what feelings? These feelings. Being exhausted, being apathetic, being sad, being defeated. That's a bad one because you don't want your morale, to get to the point where you just don't care. Kind of defeated and apathy are similar, but defeated feels just like, oh, I've lost and I've lost. Like I just can't, just can't do it. I've lost. So if you already feel like you've lost, okay? So with that, I would love for you to attend my session in October. It's called Negotiate with Confidence. We're going to talk about that whole page of strategies. We're going to go through each one, explain what they are, explain when to use them, when not to use them. And I'm also going to share all my tips and tricks, like how to negotiate a hotel room rate, how to negotiate a lower airfare, how to negotiate lower tuition. Yeah, tuition's negotiable. Like people just don't realize. But anyway, learning tips and tricks. It's Tuesday, October 29th. It's in Ann Arbor from 9 to 4. We'll start out with some icebreakers. You'll end with a plan. Hopefully you've got some things that you want to negotiate. So we'll actually, use your real examples so that you can leave with a plan. But even if you don't have anything, you'll leave with knowledge on all those strategies we just mentioned. It is going to be held at the Nexus office, University of Michigan College of Engineering Nexus office on Plymouth Road in Ann Arbor. There are 2 pre-reads that I would suggest. They're not required. We don't provide them as part of the course, but they're not expensive. Never split the difference. Negotiating as if your life depended on it. This is the former FBI hostage negotiator. And then he takes all the principles that he learned from being an FBI hostage negotiator and applies them to business. So, it's not a direct correlation, but I give him a lot of credit for making that connection. And then there's a really interesting book called Exactly What to Say, and that's the magic of words for influence and impact. So a lot of times it's just the words you use and how you say them, tone of voice, all of that. That's just very important. So much. We will follow up with you with an email, and hopefully you will come to Ann Arbor in October, and I will see you then. And you'll get a 20% off code for attending today. Feel free to email me or email us at Nexus. Thank you. Bye.
Have a good day, everyone.